everyone, I am Jalaika Viteo. Together with my groupmates, Ivy Aftana and Mergin Misores, we are assigned to report the topic Module 17, which is the virtue of justice. So here are the learning objectives or the learning outcomes for this module. At the end of this module, the student should be able to define justice and describe its characteristics, identify the theories of justice, describes the classification of justice, and clarify the concept of justice as fairness. So what is justice? The term justice is derived from the Latin word jus, meaning right. Justice means to accord each person what he or she deserves, or to give each person his or her due. Thus, it is depicted by the symbol of Lady Justice, a woman blindfolded with a set of scales typically suspended from one hand and carrying a sword in the other hand. So the symbol of justice represents authority, fairness, equality, and impartiality, implying that justice should be applied regardless of wealth, power, and status. To further contextualize, justice signifies fidelity to the law and perfect observance of the divine precepts. Justice is a firm and constant will to give each person his or her due. In the Roman Catholic tradition, it is known as the moderation between selfishness and selflessness. Justice disposes one to respect the rights of others and to establish harmonious human relationship that promotes equity for the common good. The just person, often mentioned in the sacred scriptures, is distinguished by habitual right thinking and uprightness of his or her conduct toward his or her neighbor, according to Catechism of the Catholic Church, year 1994. In his book, Christian Ethics, Peschke in the year 1994 explained that justice is a much evoked claim and virtue. All humans appeal to justice and demand justice. Justice is a familiar moral virtue, sometimes in the sense of a social norms, more often in its scope or enlarged as to extend to the total observance of all the commandments of God. Peschke lists three characteristics of justice. The first characteristics of justice is that justice is a social norm that is directive for guiding humans in their action towards one another. Meaning, justice is a social norm which guides humans in their action towards one another. The second characteristics of justice, according to Peschke, is that justice is approbative in the sense that judging an action to be just manifests approval of that action. The third characteristics of justice, according to Peschke, is that justice is obligatory in the sense that judging a certain course of action to be just entails that the person in a similar situation ought to do the same thing. Those are the three characteristics of justice according to Peschke. In addition to the characteristics of justice, Peschke draws on the following theories of justice: the positive law theory, the social good theory, and the natural right theory. Let's discuss first what is the positive law theory. So it defines justice as conformity to the law and thereby reduces the just to the legal. Justice cannot be identical with the legality since it transcends and it is critical measure. The positive law theory stems from the power that have enacted it. This type of law is necessary as it is man-made or enacted by the state to protect the rights of individual, the governed, to resolve civil disputes, and lastly to maintain order and safety in the society. The second theory of justice, according to Peschke, is the social good theory. It is defined justice as doing what is useful for the social good. In other words, justice obliges a person to do what promotes the social good. This theory equals access to social goods as one of the most fundamental principles of this social theory. This holds that society resources should be equally available to all. For example, many social justice theories believe that people should have equal access to education, healthcare, and employment opportunities. The last theory of justice, according to Peschke, is the natural right theory. It holds that the natural right is the ultimate basis of justice. One has right or not primarily because he or she has received them from society, but because his or her nature as a human being confers right upon him or her. Accordingly, the rights that are to be respected by justice are primarily derived from the laws inherent in nature itself. Basically, natural law theory is a philosophical theory that states that humans have certain rights, moral values, and responsibility that are inherent in human nature. Natural law theory is based on the idea that natural laws are universal concepts and are not based on a culture or a customs. That would be all for my topic. Thank you for listening and have a good day.
These are the three properties of justice. The first property of justice states that the demands of justice in principle are enforceable, meaning capable of being enforced, especially as a legal or a valid. The number two property states that the demands of justice are of definite and determinable of nature, at least as a rule, meaning it calls for a fundamental fairness in all agreements and exchanges between individuals. The number three property states that violated claims of justice on principle demands restitution or at least compensation if the damage inflicted cannot be repaired. Indeed, who exacts complies with the law and ethical standards should be there for most adherent, because we all know that no one is above the law and the Constitution. Classifications of justice. There are 5 classifications of justice. Number 1, attributive justice. Renders to every person what is his or her rights and attributes to him or her, or what he or she really is. Number 2 is procedural justice, concerned with making and implementing decisions according to fair procedures that ensure fair treatment. Number 3 is proportional justice, renders to every person what is his or her due by right. Number 4 is social justice, renders to economic welfare of social groups wherein it demands a proportional share for the social partners in fruits of their economic cooperation. And the last classification is retributive justice. This states that the just imposition of punishment and penalties on those guilty of performing wrongful acts.
Good day, I am Mergin Diosaurus and I will continue the topic about the classification of justice. Number 6 is compensatory justice, the just way of compensating people for what they lost as a result of wrongful actions done to them. This classification refers to the extent to which people are fairly compensated for their injuries by those who have injured them. Just compensation is proportional to the loss inflicted on a person. This is precisely the kind of justice that is at stake in debates over damage to workers' health in coal mines. Number 7. Commutative or contractual justice. It directs that the exchange of goods and services take place according to strict equality of values. As I said, commutative justice regulates exchanges between individuals. Voluntary exchanges, a sale of goods or a purchase of a house, is an example regulated by commutative justice. Commutative justice must also be considered in cases involving recompense or restitution for damage done. So number 8, contributive justice. It obliges the members of the society to comply with the demands of the common good or the general good of the community. It emphasizes that justice is achieved not when benefits are received, but rather when there is both the duty and opportunity for everyone to contribute labor and decision making. Number 9. Restorative justice. It holds the offender accountable for the harm that he or she has caused and to make reparations. Restorative justice is a process through which remorseful offenders accept responsibility for their misconduct, particularly to their victims and to the community. And lastly, distributive justice is the just or equitable distribution of benefits, rights, and socio-economic goods and burdens in the community according to proportional equality. This refers to the perceived fairness of an allocation, or more broadly, to how people judge what they receive. It was probably the first type of justice to gain the attention of organizational justice scholars and continues to receive wide attention. According to John Rawls, social primary goods such as liberty and opportunity, income and wealth, and the basis of self-respect are to be distributed equally unless an equal distribution of any or all of these goods is to advantage of the least favored. For Rawls, the job of distributive justice is to limit the influence of luck so that the goods might be distributed fairly and to everyone's advantage. Societies in which resources are distributed unfairly can become quite prone to social unrest, and redistribution of benefits can sometimes help relieve tensions and allow for a more good society. So there are two main principles of John Rawls' concept of justice as fairness. So number 1 is the liberty principle. It suggests that everyone has a claim to basic liberties and rights. And the second one is equality principle. It suggests that human beings are equal and that they ought to be treated equally. So each person has the same and indivisible or permanent claim to a fully adequate scheme of equal basic liberties, which scheme is compatible with the same scheme of liberties for all. This principle means that everyone has the basic liberties which can never be taken away. Second principle of justice, equality, 2 parts. Fair equality of opportunity. It requires that citizens with the same talents and willingness to use them have the same educational and economic opportunities regardless of whether they were born rich or poor. The second principle is difference principle. It regulates the distribution of wealth and income, allows inequalities of wealth and income so long as this will be to everyone's advantage and specifically to advantage of those who will be worse off. And that would be all. Thank you.